Now let's add a deck of cards to our deck MVC unit, and then let's implement the data source protocol so we can actually see some cards in there. And we'll need to implement the number of cells, meaning the number of cards in deck, and we'll need to implement our DQ reusable cell and configure that to match our card that we've just found at that position in the index. Okay, so back to Xcode here. First, let me show you what happens if we try to run what we have so far here. The problem is that we haven't implemented the collection view data source and delegate, even though we said that the controller would be that data source and delegate. And so we get this error, and it shows this thread1 signal sigabort, which is a Unix signal saying, hey, the thing died. And we look at the top of our stack trace down here in the debug area, which if it's not visible, you click on this button up here and you show that area. The left-hand portion is the variables view, and the right-hand portion is the console, the debug console. And so in the console, we see this unrecognized selector sent to an instance, and then terminating app because of an invalid argument exception. The reason is it's looking for this number of items in section to be implemented on collection view, and it can't find that. So we haven't implemented our data source and delegate. That's what it's telling us. It didn't say it in those words, but that's what it meant. So back to the Rook card deck, or the Rook deck view controller. So first thing we want to do is we want some constants. Remember, I copied and I want to paste into here my storyboard stuff. So private struct storyboard, and we're going to have a static let rook cell rook card cell identifier equal, and paste the string that we had chosen for our reuse identifier for that. And now I'm going to want some outlets eventually, and I'm going to want to have some, well, I may want some helpers, but let's start now by implementing an extension. So extension Rook deck view controller, and we've gone through this before. This is going to now implement the UI collection view data source. Okay, now it's going to complain that, hey, you haven't implemented that even though you said you did. And now I click on the error and I can hit fix, and it'll add the protocol stubs for me, although it does them in the reverse order of what I'd like to see. But okay, and we need to add now, oh, I left off properties here. We need to add properties, and I need a Rook deck. Now we have had a Rook deck class that we created up here in the model section. So if I look at Rook deck, you see that it has an array of cards, has a subscript operator, an account, all the things I'm going to need here. So really what I should do is I should make myself a property. So var deck equal Rook deck. Now, I can make this private if I want. I don't need it to be visible to other controllers, or I can leave off private and just say var. But anyway, I'm going to say it's private for now, and we'll see if that gets us into any trouble. So number of items in section. What we're going to do here is we're going to say, well, deck, tell me how big you are. That's how many items I have. And now dequeuing reusable cell for item at. Okay, sorry. Let's see here. For the cell for item at index path, we need to dequeue reusable cell. So let cell equal collection view dot dequeue, that one right there. Reusable cell with reuse identifier for index path. The index path is the one that just got passed into us, and the reuse identifier is the one in our storyboard structure, and it'll be that one right there. So hit return. All right, so we have a cell. We can return that cell, but we ought to configure the cell if we can. And so let's go get a card. Actually, let's first test. If let cell equal, rook card cell equal cell as rook card cell. So if it works to cast this to a rook card cell, then I can go and make my assignments. In particular, I can look at my rook card cell and I can say, what are your outlets? And inside of here should be an outlet for rook card view. It's not auto-completing, but anyway, there should be an outlet for, let's see, instance member rook card view cannot be used on type rook card cell. So, it auto-completed and changed that to an uppercase instead of lowercase. Maybe that's why my auto-completion didn't work. There it is. Okay. The capital R versus the lowercase r. All right, so that's something that'll sometimes happen to us. But now, Rook card view should have a property associated with it. In fact, it does, a card property. And I basically want that to be whatever the card is at the current index path.row. So let's go to our deck and let's say, hey, index path.row tells you which card you want to copy over into that cell. And now I just need to say, hey, you need to display yourself. So would you please rook card cell dot rook card view set needs display. And that should be enough to get things to display on the screen for me. Well, let's see if that works. We still have an error. What have we not done here? Oh, I didn't put return. Okay, now I'll try. And it doesn't read my mind for some odd reason. Okay, go to the deck. This time it doesn't crash. I see all my cards. I want them to flip over. I don't know if that really is all of my cards or not. I mean, it looks like the right number. Well, you could count and multiply and discover that's 57. But let's do that in the next part. In part 12, we'll come back and we'll work on tapping on a card and flipping it over.